Dead is the latest licensed asymmetrical multiplayer horror game to come out in the last couple of years. While I personally really enjoy these types of games, they usually tend to flop and die out fairly quickly. Predator Hunting Grounds and Friday the 13th are great examples of this. So the question is Evil Dead a game that should be dismembered and buried like a deadite? Or is the third time the charm and we finally have an asymmetrical horror game with some longevity? Before we get into the multiplayer, this game does offer some single player content in the form of missions, but don't get your hopes up too high. It's not like an actual campaign with cutscenes or unique levels or anything like that. The missions basically repurpose the multiplayer maps with basically the same form of gameplay from multiplayer. Go from one place to another, basically just picking up items and fighting demons. The missions do feature a very light story told through loading screens. You basically get a whole 2 sentences of story to motivate your gameplay. Overall, these missions are pretty mediocre and serve really no purpose other than to get you familiar with the gameplay. They're basically glorified tutorials. There's only about 1 hour of content maximum between the 5 missions. I know there's one issue that I keep seeing online, and that is that the missions are too hard, which I really don't understand. If you've ever touched a video game before, you really should be fine here. With one exception, maybe, and that is the last mission. The last mission where you get to play as Arthur from Army of Darkness, I can understand some having a bit of trouble with. In this mission in particular, you are forced into a lot more combat, and at one point you have to fight 2 bosses in a row. Putting 2 bosses back to back is a tad BS, I can't admit, to a degree, especially since this is the longest mission at around 20 minutes, and if you die to either of these bosses, you have to replay the entire mission. With all that being said, I really wish we got an actual campaign with unique maps, voice acting, cutscenes, etc. I would have been more than willing to pay the extra $20 for a full-fledged true campaign like Evil Dead Fistful of Boomstick and Regeneration. I must also say, I'm pleasantly surprised at how well this game runs. This game runs like a goddamn charm! Much better than I expected, to be honest. These asym horror games tend to be a bit of a mess usually. Friday the 13th? Good God! That game was a buggy disaster at launch. Evil Dead, however, pretty good. I didn't really run into any bugs or glitches in my 30 hours of playtime. That is besides the one time I got stuck on a tree in one of the missions and couldn't move. The only way I could get unstuck is by restarting the mission. But hey, it wouldn't be an Evil Dead game if a tree didn't fuck somebody, right? Now it's time for the main course. Multiplayer, baby! So Evil Dead is an asymmetrical game where 4 players play as Survivor against 1 demon. The goal of Survivor is to first find 3 pieces of a map that tells the team where they can find the 2 items they need to win the match. After you finish the map, then you have to get the missing page of the Book of the Dead, and then after that, you must obtain the Kandarian dagger, and then finally have a final face-off with the demon at the Book of the Dead. The demon's goal is a little more simple. Kill survivors and swallow their souls.
Swallow your soul! Swallow your soul!
Swallow this.
To put it simply, survivors try to do objectives, and the killer tries to stop them from doing said objectives. Let's go into depth of each side a little bit more. We'll start off with Demon. There are 3 demon factions to choose from. There's Warlord, Puppeteer, and then Necromancer, each one representing different demons from the Evil Dead franchise. Each faction has 3 playable demons. The basic unit, which is your demon with the lowest health, but tends to be the fastest. Next is the elite unit, which are usually slower and harder hitting demons. And finally, the boss unit, which is by far your strongest demon, but has a long respawn timer, so you better use it wisely. I personally gravitated towards Necromancer the most, because who doesn't want to play Evil Ash, am I right? But don't get things twisted, alright? I did play a good amount of my favorite thick girl, Henrietta, as well. I know how to treat a pretty gal to a good time. So you start off each match as Demon in Demon Vision mode, like the shot from the movies where the camera creepily zips through the scary forest. At this point, you don't have access to any of your demon units, and your main focus is to collect energy orbs and level up your demon level, seen in the top right. You do this by placing traps seen throughout the map, so you can gain XP, so you can earn skill points, so you then can buy upgrades and portals for your demons. I must say, Demon Vision at first does feel very clunky. On mouse and keyboard in particular, you have to use your strafe keys a lot more than in most games for your inputs to be as precise as you want them to be. You do get used to it eventually, but when I first started, I would overshoot traps and survivors much more than I intended. Another thing that feels a bit weird at first as Demon is you really don't get thrown into the action right away. You spend the first minutes of the game basically just farming energy and placing traps at places you'll think you'll need to defend. There really isn't a way to get right into the action because you really need to level up your abilities to actually fight. And there really is no easy way to find the survivors on the map either, unless they make a mistake by driving a car so they show up on your minimap. Or if their fear builds up high by them going off alone, where they will also show up on your minimap. The maps are so damn big, you really won't find them without them making a mistake and them revealing themselves. Once you do finally find the survivors, that is when you can say in your best Anakin Skywalker impression, "This is where the fun begins." You have various ways you can approach fighting the survivors, depending on the scenario. You can place a portal to summon the unit of your choice if you bought the correct upgrade, or if a survivor has high fear level, you can choose to possess them and fight them that way. These actions do require energy though, so make sure you collect enough before engaging in a fight. If I didn't mention already as well, you can possess and take control of a unit after summoning them. Each one of your units will have special attacks tied specifically to that unit. So one unit might have an AoE smash, or another might have a ranged puke attack. If you happen to let them progress to the lost page or dagger, the survivors will have to defend the area for a set amount of time before they can obtain that item. This is usually where the biggest and most chaotic fights happen. This is usually where you'll be able to finally call in your boss demon as well, and hopefully go to Pound Town. Since the survivors have to stay in the area to progress the event, you can really do a lot of damage here, especially with your boss units. Nothing's more fun than wiping out the team with Henrietta's fart bomb here. One thing though, in my opinion, if you fail these events as Demon, the punishment for failing is a bit too harsh. You are exorcised from whatever demon you currently possess. That includes boss demons. Then you are teleported across the entire map, will lose all your energy, and on top of that, all of the survivors you may have killed will respawn with full health. Like, come on! All of that at once is a bit too much, don't you think? Regardless if you win or lose a match, you will earn XP towards the character or demon you played. If you earn enough XP to level up, you'll earn a skill point, which you then can spend on each character's skill tree. This is different from the in-game upgrades that reset after each match. These are permanent upgrades that you can bring into each match right at the get-go. The upgrades range from more range on your puke ability to more health for your character or demon. You can really cater towards your playstyle here and upgrade what you like to use personally. Next, I gotta talk about some of the frustrations of playing the demon side. Generally, demon is a pretty good time. Using each demon unit's unique abilities can be a lot of fun at times, but there are some gameplay issues that I see popping up already. First being if you face a coordinating team of survivors that stick together and always keep their fear low by sticking together, it's basically impossible to find them. That is until they start a lost page or dagger event where you'll then be notified. I ran into this a couple of times, and you basically just have to sit and wait there with a finger up your ass, doing absolutely nothing, because there's no really easy way to find these coordinating teams on these big-ass maps. You'll have a higher chance of finding a finger in your Wendy's chili than finding some of these coordinating teams on these big-ass maps. And a second issue with Demon, actually both sides really, is the stun locking. Something really needs to be done about the stun locking. For God's sakes! A good team working together can stun lock even your boss units into oblivion. You think you're gonna summon your boss unit and kick some ass? Oh, think again, pal. There needs to be some sort of stun lock grace period, so being stun locked forever doesn't happen. It isn't just an issue on Demon like I said, but it can be an issue for survivors too. More specifically, if you possess a survivor who has a fast attacking weapon like the hunting knife, you can basically stun lock attack another survivor infinitely until they go down. Take a look at this. Here's an example of me stun locking a survivor into Kingdom Come. I can't lie though, I was laughing my ass off at how stupid this was. It was basically the laughing scene from Evil Dead 2. I think it's about time we start to talk about Survivor. As I said earlier, for Survivor, you basically just have to collect a bunch of items, so you then can have a final face-off against the player demon and the ancient one at the Book of the Dead. Like Demon, there is a bit of getting used to at first. The melee combat as Survivor in particular can feel pretty clunky. You kind of gotta find out what weapons you think feel good and which ones to avoid. Like for me, I absolutely hated the feel of the sword, but the chainsaw felt pretty good. One thing to note about the melee combat is that you can pull off execution attacks. When the health of an AI demon is low enough, you can press a hotkey where you'll be thrown into an execution animation that will kill the demon. During this animation, you are completely invincible. This is something that you can use to your advantage against player demons to avoid damage. It can honestly be quite frustrating for a demon player to deal with. You can go into execution animation after execution animation if you really want to, if there's enough demon fodder around. And there's nothing the demon can really do about it. I think there really needs to be some sort of cooldown on this execution animation system to make things less frustrating for the demon to deal with. There is an in-game upgrade system for Survivor as well, but the way you go about getting upgrades is a little bit different. You have to find one of the various item chests littered throughout the map. These not only contain upgrades for your character, but weapons of various rarity as well. The more rare your weapon is, the more damage it will do. If you get lucky and get legendary level gear, you can really make a joke out of the demon, to be honest. But don't get too cocky, kid, because the demon can also use your powerful weaponry to its advantage. It can do this by possessing your character and using your powerful gear against your own team. So you gotta make sure you keep your fear levels low by sticking together and reducing it at campfire so this doesn't happen. I haven't mentioned yet, but each Survivor character has a set of unique abilities and perks. You'll have one Survivor who is able to put down a healing field, one who reduces all your fear, and then you'll have ones that are honestly kind of broken. Like there's Evil Dead 1 Ash who could regain health upon every heavy melee hit. Not just for him either, but players around him will regain a small portion of health too. You also have Amanda who literally has an infinite ammo button. Just press Q and you can literally spray down even the bosses down with ease if you have a decent weapon. And finally you have Henry who literally has a press Q to be invincible button. Like, come on, man. That is not good game design. That's just straight up frustrating to deal with. Some of these abilities definitely need some tweaking. Pairing these strong abilities with a team who works together, and it can be an absolute nightmare for the demon. Another thing I think may need some tweaking is the final event against the Dark Ones. This can be really tough for survivors because you have to focus on damaging the Dark Ones with a dagger while the demon kind of has free reign to attack you. If they summon a boss demon and survivors don't switch focus to get him out of there, things can go downhill really fast for the team. Maybe a small reduction in the Dark One's health could be a solution to this? Finally, I gotta talk about the absolute struggle it can be to play Survivor. It's a little bit harder to get into games than you think at times. First off, people will be big babies and kill a lobby by leaving if they don't get the specific character they want to play. It's kind of unreal how many times this can happen. One time I had it happen 5 times in a row. Like, bloody hell, just play something else so we can play the damn game. Another miserable thing about Survivor is the room temperature IQ of solo queue Survivor. Idiots will completely go off on their own, not doing objectives, and then when they die due to their stupidity, they will rage quit. After one goes, it's like a domino effect. Everyone else will disconnect after that. And I can't say I blame them either, because being down a man puts you at a huge disadvantage. And finally, the fact there's no push-to-talk button on PC is a problem. Like, this is 2022. We don't need to be open micing anymore, fam. Like, look at this. Here I have to listen to Sausage Fingers over here, smacking away at his keyboard until I can get in-game to mute him because the idiot has open mic on. I know some of these things aren't really an issue with the game itself, but I feel it's important to mention them anyways, especially if you plan to buy the game primarily to play Survivor alone. Prepare for a lot of idiots on your team is all I can say. It may be a bit early to talk about which side is quote-unquote OP and what balance changes need to be made, but I definitely already see some issues with gameplay popping up already, like some of the Survivor abilities being too strong and the stun locking being completely broken. I just hope the dev team listens to the community and implements balance changes in a timely manner. And the final thing that needs to be addressed is the lack of content. I think $40 is pushing it just a little bit for this game. There's a good amount of characters and demons to play, sure, but the game should have launched with a couple more multiplayer maps, I think. And or some more fleshed out single player. Like, the 2 multiplayer maps are so similar to one another, it took me forever to even realize there was 2 maps. If the game launched with Castle Kandar from Army of Darkness, you wouldn't see me complaining right now. Where the hell is Castle Gandar, god damn it! I hope Saber is quick and frequently updates the game so the game doesn't become stale, and so the game doesn't die off. In conclusion, there is a good base game here. It recreates the Evil Dead franchise beautifully. Both the demon side and the survivor side can be a good time, but I really don't know the longevity of this game. I really think some players will get bored quick with the lack of content and move on to something else if the game isn't updated quickly and frequently. There is also some balance issues I see already being an issue that I hope are addressed properly. And finally, the lack of true single-player content is kind of a bummer. Like, man, I would have killed for a full-fledged campaign. So the final question is the game groovy or garbage? I'm gonna say groovy. That is, if they continue to support the game with frequent updates and balance fixes. If they do that, we should be in a good spot.